The wind screamed across an empty Arctic runway. Instruments froze. Jet fuel turned thick as tar. Somewhere in that frozen void, a downed pilot huddled beside a small metal box, a device no larger than a brick, the only thing standing between him and death by cold. During the height of the Cold War, survival meant more than just dodging missiles. It meant surviving the planet itself. From the Arctic Circle to Siberia, both NATO and Soviet forces pushed into territories so cold that even metal cracked under stress. This was a new kind of warfare, fought not with guns, but against an environment that actively tried to kill you. The challenges were immense. Fuel froze. Batteries died. Matches shattered like glass. Soldiers quickly discovered that technology built for the battlefields of Europe failed miserably at 40 below zero. The enemy wasn't just the other side. It was the cold itself. Every piece of equipment, every vehicle, every man was under constant siege by the temperature. A new solution was desperately needed, so military engineers began searching for something new, a portable, safe, and reusable heat source. What they came up with looked unimpressive. It was small, heavy, and silent. But once activated, it could keep a man alive through a night that killed machines. This simple device would become an unsung hero of the frozen frontiers. It became known simply as the heating brick, a self-contained thermal unit that never froze, never leaked, and could store heat for hours. To the soldiers who depended on it, it was like magic sealed in metal. To the engineers who designed it, it was chemistry at its finest, a triumph of practical science over a deadly environment. So what was the secret inside? The brick contained a substance called a phase-change material, a compound that absorbed a huge amount of heat when melted, then released it slowly as it solidified. Sodium acetate trihydrate was one of the most common materials used. When heated above 58 degrees Celsius, it became a liquid, storing thermal energy like a hidden battery of warmth, ready to be deployed when needed most. And using it was incredibly simple. Once activated, usually by pressing a small metal disc inside or adding a tiny seed crystal, the liquid compound began to crystallize. As it did, it released a steady flow of heat for hours, keeping its surface around 50 to 60 degrees Celsius, just enough to thaw frozen hands, dry out wet boots, or warm a can of rations. What made it perfect for the Cold War was its incredible reliability. It required no fuel, no flame, and no oxygen. This meant it could work silently even in sealed bunkers, or inside the cramped cabin of an aircraft. Encased in rugged steel or aluminum, it could survive impacts, being submerged in water, and decades of storage without losing its effectiveness. These remarkable bricks soon found their way into NATO emergency kits and Soviet field packs. Pilots flying lonely Arctic patrols carried them in their survival bags, ready to activate if they ever had to crash land in the desolate wilderness. For soldiers stationed on frozen radar outposts, the heating brick was as vital as their ammunition. One of the most fascinating examples of its use was in 1962 during Operation Cold Feet. American agents landed on an abandoned Soviet drift station in the Arctic Ocean to gather intelligence. Among their specialized survival gear were these thermal bricks. They weren't just for keeping warm. They were used to keep delicate film reels and electronic equipment from freezing solid. Without them, much of the valuable intelligence from the mission would have been lost to the cold. Meanwhile, on the other side of the Iron Curtain, deep in Siberia, Soviet researchers were using similar devices in their polar labs and remote weather outposts. When resupply flights were grounded for weeks by blizzards, these little blocks of stored heat kept food from spoiling and crucial scientific instruments running. By the 1970s, a civilian version of this technology appeared in Eastern Europe. It was often a simple metal brick you could heat on a stove, wrap in cloth, and slip under a blanket. In villages where electricity was unreliable or failed completely during harsh winters, it became a quiet miracle of warmth, a small comfort against the biting cold. The brilliance of the heating brick lay in its elegant simplicity. It had no moving parts, posed no fire hazard, and was infinitely reusable. It could be heated, cooled, and reactivated hundreds of times without losing its efficiency, something even many modern battery-powered heaters can't match. It was a perfect piece of low-tech, high-impact engineering. While the world's superpowers raced to build bigger missiles and more advanced satellites, another kind of innovation was quietly unfolding, one designed to protect, not destroy. The heating brick stands for a kind of quiet genius, born from absolute necessity and refined by the brutal demands of survival in the world's harshest climates. Today, the legacy of this Cold War invention lives on. Survivalists, campers, and off-grid enthusiasts still use phase-change technology in the form of reusable hand warmers and heat packs built on the very same principle. Whether you're miles from civilization or simply preparing for a power outage, the science behind that old Cold War brick is still keeping people safe and warm. Beneath the overarching threat of nuclear war, men and women stationed in frozen outposts were fighting their own private battles against nature itself. They weren't just soldiers or scientists. They were human beings trying to survive another long, dark night at the edge of the world. Their struggle was personal, immediate, and raw. The heating brick reminds us that not every invention of the Cold War was about destruction. Some were about endurance. They were about keeping life going when everything else froze. These innovations speak to a different side of the era, one focused on resilience and human ingenuity in the face of overwhelming odds. The Cold War produced countless secrets, but few were as humble or as vital as this one. It was a small metal brick that saved lives in silence, proof that survival, not conquest, is the truest mark of human ingenuity. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, stay prepared, and remember, sometimes history's quietest inventions tell the loudest stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Forgotten Survival for more hidden histories of World War II and much more forgotten survival tactics. Thanks again.